Our next speaker is Sridharan from the University of South Florida's Florida Center for Cybersecurity. He is a seasoned expert with more than 40 years of experience. He brings a base of knowledge acquired from his work with companies ranging from small startups to international industry giants like IBM. During his career, he has held top management positions focused on technology-based continuous availability solutions for complex business challenges, solutions for service quality intelligence on IT performance against business objectives, solutions for wireless mobility / business process integration, application service provider solutions with 8 international data centers, custom applications for global procurement and distribution management, and hosted and in-house hospital information systems. At the Florida Center for Cybersecurity, Sri has applied his business acumen to create the infrastructure of a statewide center that was formed to serve as a resource for cybersecurity education outreach and innovative interdisciplinary research within an academic environment. In this capacity, he has developed critical industry and government relationships and positioned the Florida Center for Cybersecurity to become a national player on the cybersecurity landscape. Sridharan holds 3 master's degrees, computer science, mathematics, and applied mathematics, and he lives in Tampa, Florida. Thank you very much.
I'm impressed with the introduction. I didn't realize I did all of that stuff. Good morning again. Scott, when he left, he said, I hope I woke you up. My job is to scare you. You're still not awake. My job is to scare you. Okay. So how many of you have been hacked? Can you show of hands? Okay, about half a dozen raise their hands. The rest of you here are lying. You've been hacked and you just don't know it, right? What I'm going to go through today is to talk a little bit about what has happened in 2015, what we can expect in 2016, and what FC Squared, Florida Center for Cybersecurity, is all about. That's essentially what I'm going to cover in about 30 to 35 minutes. Okay? Cybercrime. It's got a huge economic impact globally speaking. It's about a $2.1 trillion problem. Huge. There's a car salesman that advertises saying huge. I mean, this is really a huge problem that we face. It's fairly complex. It's very dynamic. It's fast changing. The threat actors change. The techniques change. The technology they use change. The tactics change. We got to stay on top of it. Right now, we are in a very reactive mode. And I think Scott touched on this. This problem is not going to go away until we get into a proactive mode, away from being reactive. And that's going to take many years. You all know Robert Herjavec, right? The guy in Shark Tank who sits on the right-hand side, looks like the cool guy. You all know that? Or, do you know what I'm talking about? You do. So I had him down to Tampa to be a keynote speaker because he owns a cybersecurity company in Canada, the largest one. Of course, I'll never invite a celebrity again. It was a zoo dealing with him. But having said that, one of the things that he said was, for the next 10 to 12 years, there'll be no such thing as an unemployed security analyst. You know that? No such thing as an unemployed security analyst. In other words, this is a hot area, and the needs for security analysts is deep, and the talent pipeline is very thin, the demand is very high. So what are some of the biggest hacks of 2015? Office of Personnel Management. I'm not going to go through every one of them. There are about 20, 25 of them that are major hacks, but I'm going to cover just 4 or 5. But the important thing I want you to recognize is that each one of them is going to be different in the way they were attacked, the way that they were breached, etc. The Office of Personnel Management is still trying to figure out how many people's identities and records have been compromised. Because when you apply for a security clearance, you have to disclose your family members and their social security numbers, etc. They continue to receive letters from the OPM saying that their records are compromised. So that's still going on. Even as of last week, one of my associates received a letter. So this thing is going to go on for a while. So the number of 21 million victims is, I think, an underestimate. It's much larger than that. But they had a program called Einstein that monitors all these systems. It went past all of Einstein. And it remained there, the malware, to steal all this information for many months before it was even discovered. CIA Director John Brennan, his email ID was hijacked. Very clever guy from Britain did that. This is the CIA director. It gives you a lot of confidence, right? IRS, 300,000 taxpayer accounts were compromised. And actually, they're saying that that's an underestimate. The numbers are even higher than that. In fact, just yesterday, I received at 8 o'clock, I was making a presentation to NDIA, and I received an email from an important source, reliable source. They have started a phishing scam on W-2s. So what happens is that a letter will come from the CEO of a company to their HR and payroll department. I want to review all of the W-2s of all the employees. Please give me in a PDF format, the social security numbers, addresses, W-2, how much they earned, et cetera, et cetera. This is a huge thing that's going on right now, so CEOs better be aware, HR folks be aware. And that's going to be a serious problem if indeed that information is put together and sent to the wrong people. Anthem Health Insurance, 80 million records, 80 million customers, information were compromised. This is a huge piece of hacking and breach that took place. But some of these organizations are well prepared, like what Scott was talking about. They're well prepared in terms of going through a war game exercise in how to deal with this type of a breach, how to contain the information, how to share the information with the public, how to respond to the media, well orchestrated. That's why you don't hear about a lot of breaches that do take place that we never hear about in the press. Ashley Madison, one of my favorites. I was in fact in the city of Tampa making a presentation to the mayor's conference of about 10 to 11 executives from the city. And I was driving back to my work on I-275, those of you who know Tampa. I was on 275 driving to my office and my cell phone was ringing. Said all the TV stations wanted to talk to me. So I got to my office and I listened to one of the voicemails. He said, we want to talk to you about Ashley Madison. I said, Ashley Madison, I have no idea. What are they talking about? Of course, I had to do Google right away. Ashley Madison, and then I said, oops. You all know what Ashley Madison was, right? No? Are you serious? I mean, it's being in the press so much. It's a site where married people figure out a way to have marital affairs outside of their wedded life. And there were a lot of information that was exposed, close to 3 million, I think. And we did have a chance to look at some of the data. 50% of those people were from the city of Ottawa. Do not ask me why. That's where the government is. And the reason that happened, just to finish the story, is apparently they advertised that for $18 they would erase your information from the website. Anonymous said, no way. Nothing gets erased. Once you're on the internet, it's going to stay there, somewhere, in some backup file. You don't really erase it. And Ashley Madison said, oh, screw you. They fought with Anonymous. They said, okay, we'll hack you. And they exposed all the customers. That's how that whole thing happened, just a story behind it. So what does the 2016 threat landscape look like? You can read the quote by Lane Thames. There are going to be a lot of connected devices, Internet of Things. And I don't need to tell you about this. Most of you know what that is, right? Right? Okay. So there are going to be, what does it say? By 2020, 20 billion devices that are going to get connected. In fact, just a couple of months ago, a Silicon Valley firm got funded $25 million for creating a mattress pad that's going to wake you up in the morning. It's going to hit you over the head with a rolling pin. It's going to start your coffee pot. It's going to tell you how long it's going to take you to go to work. They got funded 25 million. It's the Internet of Things. It's connecting all kinds of stuff. Your data is passing through from device to device, wirelessly, secure, insecure, we don't know. We don't know who's tapping into what information at what point. It's going to create a huge problem. And so here are some of the threats that most of the pundits and researchers and experts are saying will happen in 2016. Headless worms. How many of you know what a headless worm is? Okay. So those are, very few people lifted their hands. So you know those Fitbits that you wear on your wrist? Those are all headless worms. You don't wear a headset for those. That's why they're called headless worms. Am I right, Scott? That's the definition? See, you learned something new today. 3 o'clock cocktail conversation, headless worms. So that's going to be a device that's going to be attacked and breached quite a bit. Even, in fact, during the holidays, the Barbie dolls, there was a huge problem with them. The Barbie dolls now speak. You can ask a question like you ask Siri, and then it'll go and get you the answers and speaks to the child. But first, when you set up this Barbie doll, the child says its name. My name is Jenny. Where do you live? Gives the address. So it's all set up. But the package says, please change the password. They all come with standard password. Do the parents read that stuff? Nope. The bad guys know what that standard password is, so now they can get the child's name, birth date, where the child lives, etc. So we've got to be very careful about the gadgets that we use, and parents need to be educated and be aware of what they need to do to secure those devices for the kids. Jailbreaking the cloud, everyone is moving to the cloud. One of the simple reasons why they are moving to the cloud is because they can't find people, the security analysts to hire. Even if they find them, they are very expensive. And the small to medium companies are saying, let's just go to a cloud and let somebody else worry about security. So there's a huge focus on jailbreaking the cloud from all the hackers. Ghostware, blastware, they hack you and then they don't leave any fingerprints. Ransomware, this is absolutely huge, very large problem. And it's permeating very fast through all the businesses, where they lock up your files, and unless you pay a ransom, they will not unlock the files for you. Has anyone experienced it here? Again, somebody is lying. I'm sure somebody here has experienced ransomware. Okay, you still deny it. In fact, there's an example I can give you. In Tallahassee, apparently there was a lawyer who had a court case at 9 o'clock. At 8:45, her files got locked up. She paid $300, and they unlocked the files just before 9 o'clock so she can have the court case. So I was talking to some Secret Service and FBI agents who came to my office for other purposes, and I asked them, why can't you trace the money? They said, it just disappears into a bank of 1,000 IP addresses. We cannot figure out where the heck it's going. Very clever in terms of how they do it, and they get away with it. That's a huge problem. Social engineering, phishing. And I just gave you an example of what's happening with IRS today, as of yesterday. These are, spear phishings are very common these days. I'll give you this little story. It's a company in the Tampa area that hired a firm to teach all of its employees cyber hygiene, how to change your password periodically, how the strength of the password, not to leave passwords lying around underneath the keyboards. You know how many keyboards we left and the passwords are there? So they taught them all about cyber hygiene and how to use social networks and social media, etc. Then they went away. 2 months later, they sent phishing emails to the company. They were taught not to click on attachments, not to click on emails that they didn't know who it came from. Guess how many employees clicked on that phishing emails? Anyone? 80%. That was not the worst part. 100% of the executives clicked on it. These are our leaders. Okay? So this is a serious problem, and they exploit the different companies using spear phishing. And I think I just spoke to these different topics. There are some positive signs. There's a lot of awareness of cybersecurity. That's some of the things that we do. I'm going to talk to you about that in just a minute. There's a large amount of money that was budgeted, close to $16 billion in the U.S. budget for this year. $16 billion for various aspects of cybersecurity. There are lots of good best practices that have been developed, and if you have time, we can talk about that. But the real challenge is finding good people, the talent, to fill the jobs. Every day, I get at least 2 or 3 emails requesting help in finding people for the jobs that are open. There are close to 207,000 plus jobs in cybersecurity that are open today. There are only about 2,000 qualified employees. Mike Daniels, who is the czar in the White House for cybersecurity, we have czars for everything. A czar in the White House said that, I was talking with him after a presentation, and he said they want to hire 6,000 cyber professionals in the next 18 months. 6,000. So I asked Mike, where are you going to find these people? He said, oh, I'll come to Tampa. I said, I don't have that many. But this need for talent, cybersecurity professional talent, is all over the place globally. So who is FC Squared? What do we do? We were established in statute on July 1 of 2014 by the Florida legislature. We are about 20 months old, or 20 months young. That's how long we have been in existence. And we have got 3 important things that we focus on: education, research, and outreach. Those are the 3 things that we are focused on. But our focus is to plant the cybersecurity flag squarely in the state of Florida and be the leader in the nation for cybersecurity. That's what we want to be. That's our ultimate goal. And I think we are well on our way to establishing ourselves as the leader. You can see on the slide, we want to create thousands of high-paying jobs. We want to be a statewide facilitator for everything related to cybersecurity. Those are some of the things that we want to do. And I'm going to talk to you about how we have worked on these 3 key imperatives: education, research, and outreach. When it comes to education, first of all, when we were established in statute, they told us that we represent the 12 state institutions across the entire state of Florida. That includes USF, FSU, UF, UCF, FIU, FAU, and so on. We represent 12 state institutions. I chair that council. Every 2 months, we get together at some location and we discuss cybersecurity related topics. So when it came to education, what we tried to do is to work with these different institutions and pull together programs, cybersecurity programs, whether it's a master's program, whether it's an undergraduate program, or certificates in different aspects of cybersecurity. We help them put it together. For example, at USF, we work with the faculty across 5 different colleges: College of Business, Arts and Science, Engineering, Computer Science, Behavioral Science, and Education. And we put together a master's program, and you can graduate from the program in 12 to 18 months. Cuts across all disciplines. They also offer 4 different certificates: Certificate in Information Assurance, Digital Forensics, Cyber Intelligence, and Cybersecurity Fundamentals. And now we are in the process of putting together an undergraduate program as well, not fully on cybersecurity, but it will be a bachelor's degree in computer science or MIS with a minor in cybersecurity. We want to graduate as many students as possible. Every one of our students who have graduated, they have jobs, multiple job offers when they graduate at USF. We are working with every other state institution that I mentioned earlier on to do similar things. And many of them have put together programs. We have a comprehensive chart that the Board of Governors asked me to send to them last week. We have a comprehensive chart on all the programs and all the certificates that are being offered to graduate as many students as possible to meet the demands in the marketplace. We also put together a special program for veterans. There are many veterans returning from the war, and many of them have good intel background. We want to teach them cybersecurity in the areas of interest that they are interested in, and then reintegrate them into the workforce. So we got a grant for $300,000 from JP Morgan Chase, and the program started on January the 11th, and we do it in 3 phases. The first 12 to 14 weeks, they take some core courses in cybersecurity. The second 14 to 15 weeks, they spend time on incident response, as well as how to write a resume, how to conduct themselves in an interview, etc. And the last 15 to 16 weeks, they have an internship at some company. So when they graduate out of this program, they've got hands-on experience, they've acquired knowledge in cybersecurity in certain areas of interest that they have, and they're very employable. So that program started on January the 11th, and I met with all of them just last week and spoke to them, very excited. First cohort of 20 students. Next year, we don't know whether we'll have 20 or 25 or 30, but this is the first year as a pilot program. We just started it, and it's going very well. On the research side, there are a couple of things that I want to highlight for you. Every year that we have received money from the legislature, we took $500,000 and we said we'll use these as seed grants for innovative research proposals that they can submit. The only requirement is that 2 colleges need to collaborate. 2 universities need to collaborate and submit a proposal. We don't want them to compete with each other, but collaborate with each other and submit a proposal. There's an independent review, and then we hand out the $500,000. That is the total amount. So some of them will get 50, some of them might get 60, some might get 40, etc. And the good news is that many of those projects have already been picked up by industry for further funding, additional funding. And last year we had a research symposium where we presented all these papers, and it was very well received. Here are some of the research topics: Trojan detection, smart grid security, biometrics, wearable device, probably focuses on headless worms, protecting against insider threats, and IoT. There are many other areas too, and we get some very creative proposals, and we have a panel that reviews all of them before we go through the selection process. So it's an excellent program that creates a lot of interesting ideas in the marketplace. We have an extensive outreach. Oh, by the way, one other thing that I forgot to tell you. Remember earlier on I said we represent 12 state institutions. One of the things that we do is if there's a grant or a project from any of the 3-letter agencies in DC, we have the ability to put forth the best research faculty from the state of Florida to work on these things. Because FC Squared represents all the 12 state institutions for the state of Florida. So we find that that is a message that's very well received by the three-letter agencies. They don't see multiple universities competing for the same thing, but instead the best research faculty from the state of Florida that goes after them. And they like that very much. That's a unique business model. No other state is doing it, and they're very excited to work with us in that regard.